Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Results of this year's Hong Kong Diploma of Secondary Education Examination, or HKDSE, will be out tomorrow. According to the Examinations and Assessment Authority, some 18,000 candidates fulfill the general entrance requirements of the city's publicly funded universities. And this year, there are 10 DSE top scorers. Mimosa reports.
In a press conference today, the Hong Kong Examinations and Assessment Authority said more than 49,000 students sat the HKDSE this year. Among them, 80,314 students reached the general entrance requirements of subsidized universities this year, with grades of 332A or above for the 4 core subjects: Chinese language, English language, mathematics compulsory part, and citizenship and social development at attained level. Authorities said the result of the core subjects improved this year. For Chinese language, around 65% of students achieved level 3 or above, 4.7 percentage points higher than last year. More than 56% of the candidates obtained level 3 or above in English language, a rise of 3 percentage points compared with the 2023 figure. The new subject of citizenship and social development has 2 grades attained, which is A or not attained. Around 94% of students obtained A. This year, 8 male and 2 female students became top scorers, meaning they have gained 5 double stars in 6 subjects, as well as an A in citizenship and social development. 8 of them are super scorers, as they also obtained 5 double stars in the Math Extended Part 2 subject. Authorities said students should not just focus on their grades.
Candidates with different abilities can choose their own path based on their results, interests, and aspirations, selecting a suitable path for their development.
While no cases of plagiarism were reported during the exam this year, authorities said some of the grades of 13 students would be lowered as a penalty for taking photos in examination centers and posting them online. News 9, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee said consultations for the upcoming policy address will start now and that residents can submit opinions from today. It will be the CE's 3rd policy address. Mimosa again.
In October, Chief Executive John Lee will deliver his 3rd policy address. Speaking ahead of his Executive Council meeting today, the CE said the public consultation for the policy address is now open. He said the policy address will focus on developing the economy after the administration has fulfilled its constitutional responsibility, passing the local legislation for Article 23 of the Basic Law.
This is the best time to work on people's livelihood. Our society is stable and orderly. We focus on 3 areas. First, to improve people's livelihood, we will strengthen our inherent strength and find new growth points. Thirdly, we will seize upon the opportunities of national development.
The government will organize more than 40 consultation sessions to receive the opinions of lawmakers, representatives from different sectors, and members of the public. District visits will also be held. Meanwhile, authorities are planning to regulate ride-hailing services in the city, but they will assess the matter over a 1-year period. The CE said it will take time for the government to look at public demand for the ride-hailing platforms and to improve local taxi services. News 9, TVB News.
In the United States, former President Donald Trump received a hero's welcome at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee in his first public appearance since last Saturday's assassination attempt on him. He wore a bandage over his ear. The Republican Party formally named him as its presidential nominee in November's election. And Trump named Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. David Garrett reports.
Donald Trump's right ear bandaged as he strode into the Republican National Convention, looking well 2 days on from surviving an assassination attempt. The former president raised a fist, just as he had done on Saturday, moments after taking a bullet in that ear. He entered to vociferous cheers and the music of Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA. The artist himself showed up to sing it. Trump's family looked on as delegates showed affection for their father.
We love Trump! We love Trump!
Republicans stood and cheered for long moments. Trump mouthed thanks and clapped. Trump was briefly emotional, and now, as the official Republican presidential nominee, took a place next to his selected running mate, J.D. Vance. But this moment was all about Trump. He was venerated on stage and on the floor. USA! USA! Earlier, Trump had emphatically gained the official nomination. In contrast to Democrat Joe Biden, there are no doubts here.
On behalf of our entire family and on behalf of the 125 delegates in the unbelievable state of Florida, we hereby nominate every single one of them for the greatest president that's ever lived, and that's Donald J. Trump, hereby declaring him the Republican nominee for President of the United States of America.
The 78-year-old left to more adulation. Trump does not speak until Thursday. Surrounded by the Secret Service amid tight security, undeterred by the attempt on his life, he greeted Republicans who filmed the man they hope will regain the presidency. His main political maneuver came earlier when selecting Vance as the vice president candidate, which was endorsed by the convention. Ohio colleagues punched the air at Vance's confirmation. The 39-year-old was first elected to represent the state in the Senate in 2022. Vance had been a critic of Trump, but now is fully on board. That may be why Trump has chosen him. Trump still has to convince the wider public that kicked him out of the White House at the last election to change their mind too. David Garrett, TVB News.
Donald Trump has picked Ohio Senator James David Vance as his running mate for the 2024 presidential election. Danny Jo has more about the one-term senator.
J.D. Vance was officially nominated as the Republican vice presidential nominee with overwhelming support at the Republican National Convention.
J.D. 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 J.D.
At 39, Vance became the youngest nominee for the bottom of the ticket since Richard Nixon, representing a younger generation in this year's campaign. The Yale-educated lawyer and former Silicon Valley venture capitalist came from a humble background. He rose to fame with the best-selling memoir Hillbilly Elegy in 2016, which depicted white poverty and the self-destructive culture in the Rust Belt. The book was praised by conservatives for its criticism of welfare, and also became an unofficial guide for liberals who want to know about the silent majorities in rural America behind Trump's rise. Vance entered politics in 2021 and quickly became a Republican star after he developed strong rapport with his Trump family. Vance, who once criticized Donald Trump as America's Hitler, has since made a 180 turn to become a steward ally of Trump and established himself as a MAGA loyalist. Vance is publicly against abortion rights and LGBT rights, while vehemently opposing aid for Ukraine and U.S. involvement in international affairs, which has sparked concerns among European politicians. Europeans also worry that Vance's protectionist impulses would cast a shadow on the US-EU trade relationship. Meanwhile, Vance branded China as the biggest threat to America and advocated a hawkish stance towards Beijing on tariff hikes and weapons for Taiwan. Domestically, some Republican supporters think that Vance, as a populist Midwest conservative, would do little to help Trump win votes in swing states and may even alienate moderates. And Vance's anti-corporate stance and support for antitrust crackdown on big tech companies may unnerve some major donors of the Republican Party. 4 donors reportedly said they felt let down after the nomination of Vance. Danny Jo, TVB News.
Still ahead, Germany abstains from EU vote on tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. And final preparations for this year's Hong Kong Book Fair. Welcome back. Germany says it hasn't decided whether the EU should hit China's electric cars with large trade tariffs, effectively confirming an abstention from a vote at the EU Commission. Berlin's economic ministry says Germany contributed to Monday's discussion in the European Commission, and it seeks a rapid and consensual solution with China. Italy and Spain voted to back stipulations. The non-binding vote will influence whether the Commission, which oversees trade, is more likely to impose massive duties of up to 38% on cheap Chinese EVs. There is a 4-month consultation period during which Brussels and Beijing may still work out a compromise. China threatens sanctions on European-made cars like BMWs from Germany if the EU goes ahead with economic restrictions. In the first half of 2024, 21 million tourists visited Hong Kong, a 64% year-on-year increase. Mainland tourists accounted for more than 76% of all visitors. Helen Chen reports.
In June this year, multiple events were held in Hong Kong to attract tourists, including the Hong Kong International Dragon Boat Races. During this time, the amount of visitors to the city also increased. According to the Hong Kong Tourism Board, roughly 31.3 million people visited Hong Kong last month, a 14% increase from the same period last year. 21 million people visited Hong Kong in the first half of this year, with a daily average of 116,000. Out of the visitors, about 76% of them came from the mainland, accounting for more than 16.1 million people, a 60% increase from last year. Non-mainland visitors from places such as Europe, the US, and Macau increased by 80%, with the amount of short-haul visitors doubling. The amount of new market visitors increased by 1.5 times. Half of the tourists were overnight visitors, staying for an average of 3.2 days in Hong Kong. The favorite spot for tourists is Tsim Sha Tsui, including the Avenue of Stars and the Star Ferry. Ms. Pan from Hubei says she mainly took her children to look at the cultural spots and museums so they can better understand Hong Kong's culture. Some international visitors stayed in the SAR for longer.
About 45 days. 2016 I come, 2015 I come many times before.
James from the UK is also staying for 1 to 2 weeks.
For me, there's more I would say more Western influences in Hong Kong. Music, fashion, those seem like things that Hong Kong does well, especially fashion, food, all those things. Keep speaking good English and then people will obviously come because it's easy to communicate with people.
Timothy Tsui, the executive director of the Hong Kong Tourism Association, said tour group numbers have not reached pre-pandemic levels. He suggested authorities could provide incentives such as overnight rewards to encourage tour groups to stay in Hong Kong overnight.
According to the Hong Kong Tourism Board, on a 10-point scale, the overall satisfaction rate of tourists to Hong Kong reached 8.7 points as of January to May this year. The overall intention to revisit and recommendation rates both reached 94%. Helen Chen, TVB News.
The annual Hong Kong Book Fair will commence tomorrow and will remain open to the public for 7 days. The Hong Kong Trade Development Council, which organizes the event, said it is confident about this year's people flow thanks to the recent opening of the Shenzhen-Zhongshan link, which could bring in more shoppers. But some exhibitors believe there will be a drop in business as more people flock north for shopping. A model of the Kowloon Walled City, which once housed between 30,000 and 50,000 people in just 2.6 hectares of land, is among the highlights of this year's event. Hong Kong's unique history and culture are shown in memorabilia from the city's classic literary and cinematic works. From Cheong Sam worn in The Drunkard to the writings of martial arts novelist Louis Cha in old newspapers, visitors can adore the rich culture presented at this year's book fair held at the Convention and Exhibition Center. The theme this year is film and television literature. Throughout the exhibition, several galleries will play segments of Hong Kong's film classics adapted from literary works. Several installations will also be featured, allowing revelers to interact with the world of literature. Visitors at the book fair could transform into characters from their favorite Hong Kong novels with this AI photo booth. Organizers hope attractions such as this could generate more interest in the city's native literature scene. Sophia Chong, the Deputy Executive Director of the event organizer, Hong Kong Trade Development Council, said several panels featuring popular authors have already been fully booked. The TDC also emphasized its confidence in the people flow this year, owing to the recent opening of the Shenzhen-Zhongshan link. But not all share the same positive outlook. Some exhibitors selling children's teaching materials said they cut expenditure on the fair by half and noted an expected drop in business. Several of them said fewer berths in the city, in addition to more people choosing to shop and dine in the mainland, are among the factors affecting their decision. And that's the news. Thanks for watching.